One question that you can ask yourself when you are dealing with someone that you are perceiving as extremely problematic, tough, adversarial, whatever it may be, one question that you can ask yourself is, what is the source of this personality? I learned this from an interview between somebody interviewing Gabor Mate, and whenever you get Gabor Mate speaking, it's going to be very prophetic, amazing, genius, all these great things. But he goes on to talk about nobody is their behavior. Nobody is the thing that we're calling them. And if you've ever worked in a classroom with children, you'll find that you're never supposed to say, you're being a bad kid, this or that and the third. It's the behavior that is merited, not the person. And when we say, what is the source of this anger? What is the source of this emotion that's being thrown at me right now? Many times in families, I think that we can easily ask the question, what is the source of this? And we can figure out the answer to that very quickly because we know the people who raised other people in our families. We might have experienced them as well. And we can immediately say, oh, this is from that, this person is treating us the way that they were treated. They're mirroring it. They're trying to navigate the way that they were dealt with, the way that they were carried in the world in the beginning. And it's important to know this because when we can start to look at people and ask the question, what is the source of this personality? What is the source of this behavior? What is the source of this person's personality? And how are they manifesting their lived experience right before their eyes based on their past trauma, based on their past informed, based on their trauma informing their behavior now? We can then look at people for who they're being and not entirely condemn them for who they are. This is so useful, especially being a highly sensitive person, because it can come to that point many times where we're like, all right, this is this, that is that, and that is that. And it's just, everything gets categorized and it's gonna stay there forever. And it's complete and pure condemnation. The cost of that is nothing in the world is transmutable. Nothing can change. And that in turn turns to us looking in the mirror saying, we can't change. When we project out onto others that they are their own behaviors, we then begin to judge ourselves and say, well, where are our behaviors too? Whatever we project out onto others is what we're operating with from within. And when we start to ask, what is the source of this person's sadness or their rage or their violence, whatever it is, not to give it a pass or say that it's permitted, but to say, okay, what is going on here? What happened to this person? Then we can start to give ourselves grace. It's really as easy as that. And I think you can start by going the other way, giving yourself grace and then giving it to other people. But when we're able to start giving other people just the question, not grace, not forgiveness, not space or anything, just give them the question. I wonder what the source of this behavior is. We go back to that one thing when Simon Sinek said, if anybody's response is over a 5, it's not about the thing. Something else is going on. And when we did a study when I was with this media group about elected officials. In the past, the beginnings of government in the United States, many elected officials would step up and say, my constituents have asked me to step forward and run. Now, what do people say? I think I'm the person for the job. Nobody asked you. People just stepping up. They're like, yeah, I think I got this. I asked myself, and I said, yeah. And it's this form of narcissism and self-perpetuation that really gets somebody going like, I'm him. And when that happens, I ask myself the question many times, working in media and looking at a lot of elected officials and people that say wild things in the Senate and the House of Reps. What happened to them? What is the source of this? The origin story here is pretty interesting. we went back on one elected official and discovered that they had run for school presidents when they were younger. And they lost to somebody else. But not only did they lose, but it was a pretty emphatic loss. They got on stage and said something that was not so favorable of the janitors at the school, and they were booed off stage. That, my friend, I can't imagine how deep that hurt. And the kid at the time is just, it's not to forgive them or give them the pass to saying nasty things about janitors, because you shouldn't. For me, in my world, I would have nothing bad to say about a janitor. I mean, they do the work that a lot of people aren't willing to do or wouldn't even imagine doing. And this kid in this moment said something bad about janitors, got booed off stage, and never forgot that moment, and then rose to a role of power and is now seemingly taking it out on a lot of people. I can't imagine. I can't rack my brain around the hurt and violence that person would be entirely okay with just carrying out. Hurt people. And when we ask the question, what is the source of that person's behavior, we can start to look at them as a human and not as their behavior. And to look at somebody as a human isn't to look at it through rose-colored glasses. It is to look at somebody as almost a body of water. It can change at different times. It can be up, it can be down, it can be hot, it can be cold, it can be different things. And we can start to give ourselves the same grace. We can really start offering ourselves the same amount of grace. And so, in this particular interview, the person interviewing Gabor was saying, aren't some people just a-holes? And immediately Gabor says, no. Because Gabor has a very stoic voice, it's like, no. It's just immediate. It's like when he says it, it's truth. It's like, oh, this is what it was always going to be, and what they're saying is prophecy. And so, and he goes into this idea of, we act out the way that we were treated. So let's look at the way that other people were treated. And then we start to figure out the source of what's going on. And then we're able to draw up, guess what? Ta-da, a human. And I know that inversely that's the same way it goes for yourself. So what I want you to get from this is, how do you want to navigate the world knowing that everyone is transmutable like yourself? Everything can change. How would you look at the world if you knew that everybody like yourself, their vibration can change? What would the world look like? 2, how would you go through it? How would you walk through that world? And 3, here's a big one, what's possible in that world? The possibilities become more abundant when you know that vibrations are transmutable, that people can change and so can you. And that people aren't their emotions or their behaviors. There's something so big that happens when we understand that. We really, really lock in with that, because then we understand humanity is essentially this thing that's being explained to us. Our behaviors are sourced and hardwired from the way that we were past treated or essentially interpreted the world. We see the world by our beliefs, not our eyes. Our beliefs come from our emotions and our thoughts and our past experiences. How can we rewire that for a different future? There is definitely a way. There for surely is a way. And you have that opportunity to do that at any point in time. Change your story, to change what you want going forward. But I love that this interview with Gabor Mate said, people are the source of ask the question, what is the source of their personality? And then how can we accept that fact going forward? The acceptance is the tough part. I had in making amends with my parents, I had to accept that they weren't their actions. I had to go back and look at their parents and their parents before that to really get a picture of what the heck is going on here. And then break down, okay, well, now I think there's a lot of room for grace here and some changes. Definitely can do that. So I want just a challenge to you, just to take a look at it. Take a look at one person in your life and a behavior or a moment that you had that was entirely unsavory. And I know that we don't usually focus on the bad, on the negative here, but do that. Not focus on it, but take inventory of it. And then, taking the fact that that's not that person. Taking the fact that your worst moment is not who you are. Brian Stevenson, the leader of Equity Justice Initiative. We are more than the worst moment of our life. That is the one way he seeks to get justice for people that have been deemed expendable by the judicial system. We are more than the worst moment of our lives. And once you take that the possibility that there's more to this person than the worst moment of their life or this negative moment that you had with them, what are the possibilities for you in this world, knowing that that is true? What has been considered a door not only closed and locked, but totally cemented off? To know that that door is still open, it's still a possibility to you. What does your life look like now, understanding that there are sources to behaviors and not entirely just people being their behaviors? They are who they are. What does that look like? I know that the world opens up once you start to look at it through that lens. So I'm curious how that works out for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in the next video.